Well, greetings everybody. And welcome to this rather remarkable session 3.1 of this conference. We're very excited to be with you this afternoon. And this is about Strand 3. What does progress in transformative education look like? The crucial role of teachers. One thing's for sure, throughout this conference, teachers are pivotal. They are central to how we bring about transformation and bring about the kind of education and indeed the planet that we all want. So the context here is that teachers are influential, both in global citizenship education and education for sustainable development. And this needs to be implemented at an individual, classroom level and right across the school. The UNESCO Education International Global Study on the readiness of teachers to teach ESD and GCED reported limited and dispersed capacity. Teachers did not feel confident to implement these components. And this is what this session's all about. How do we overcome the issues of overcrowded curricula, the lack of confidence and knowledge, and the behavioral and socio-emotional learning? Some teachers report a lack of adequate materials and tools, and so on. So in our session, we are going to address the following questions. What does it mean to be prepared as a teacher? What makes teaching and learning a transformative experience? How can policy processes effectively contribute and support teacher preparation for transformative education? And how can initial teacher education effectively prepare teachers for this transformation that we all want? What can teachers do to get ready for these resource contexts? And how do we stimulate and motivate the practice of transformative education? Finally, what are the core competencies to be ready? So to introduce myself, my name's Jim Taylor. I'm greeting you from South Africa. And it's just really fantastic to be with you. And I'd really like to welcome the team of people who've also helped put the session together. But in particular, we have two panelists to share with us today. First of all, we have Dr. D. Samsideth. Dr. D is the Deputy Director General for Education, Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, Phnom Penh in Cambodia. Great to have you with us, Dr. D. And if you'd like to just say a word of welcome, unmute yourself and greet our audience.
Good afternoon. I'm speaking from Rwanda. Good to be here with us. Jim, thanks for the introduction. Let's enjoy the video and then we will be discussing further. Thank you.
Look at that. So there we have an incredible global citizen, Dr. D, although he's from Cambodia and a Deputy Director General. He is indeed in Kigali, Rwanda at the moment, in Africa, working to promote transformative education right around the globe. And he is indeed an expert in enabling educational policy to ensure that the policies enable teachers to teach the kind of transformation we want. We don't want people constrained by policy. But also with us, we have Professor Mika Van Engelmann, all the way from Belgium, and there's her image. Mika, thank you so much for joining us. She has been involved in teacher preparing and teacher education for just about her whole life, and the enthusiasm of her students will come through a little bit later in the session. So we'll just like Mika to greet you all. Please, Mika from Belgium.
Hello, thank you, Jim, and thank you, UNESCO and the UNESCO ASP.NET and the APCEIU for inviting me to present here today what we do in our Teacher Education Institute. Thank you.
Super, Mika. Thank you so much. And just to give you her full title, it's Professor Mika Van Engelmann. She's a lecturer, University College Leuven, Limburg, Teacher Education, and they are UNESCO Associated Schools Network members in Belgium. So as Mieke says, a huge thank you for UNESCO making this whole program possible and all the people who've helped put it together. So we'll now look at another amazing development from around the world, which is the UNESCO launch of a book about reimagining our futures together. And with a bit of luck, we're going to have a screenshot of that book appearing. This book is really a turning point in education globally. Up until now, it was very much an individualistic thing. We taught people because we felt they needed to know something. But in this book, Reimagining Our Futures Together, a new social contract for education, what's happening is it's for the benefit of humankind. It's for the benefit of the planet, and it's for the benefit of the common good. So there's this remarkable shift from a focus on just the individual and getting them educated to a global perspective where the common good is the essence here that we're teaching. And that's why we're so delighted to have Dr. D and Professor Mieke with us, because they have really been pioneering this work in reimagining our futures together. We are faced with all sorts of challenges, human conflict, climate change, the list is endless. We can't pre-prepare learners for something that we can't anticipate, but we can teach them how to learn. And I think that is what is so special about the sessions you're about to hear. So I'll now call upon the prearranged session by Dr. D. And in this session, he's going to outline how learning has shifted from teaching people to enabling people to learn to teach and to learn. It's a very different thing. And we invite the presentation by Dr. D, please.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Samsideth. I'm the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, Cambodia. I'm speaking to you as a policymaker in education sector in Cambodia. I cover teacher education reform, especially focusing on enhancing the quality of teachers under the framework of teacher preparation as well as the teacher professional development. I would like to thank UNESCO and APCEIU for the opportunity allowing me to speak at the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development and Global Citizenship. And I would like to share a screen, and my presentation will focus mainly on this, how well we prepare teachers for Cambodia under the 21st century skill that we are so concerned about for Cambodia. What we need is to have the focus on how we can improve our teachers before we improve our students. As a policymakers, we look into the regional trends and issues. We look into what happened in the school, what the stakeholders, the parent and the students say about the service of education, especially those who spend 12 years at school and who spend number of years beyond school. But I will talk mainly, I focus on school. What we need is that every student, they need good teacher, and good teacher also need good school director, and good school director also need a well-supported system and well-funded school, well-participated school, so that the school can run better in that regard. So Cambodia focus now is to look into changing the role of teachers from teaching the subject, teaching the book, into teaching the student, and worried about student learn and ensure that self-directed learning of the student has been ensured. And teacher is also a lifelong learner. They have to be able to inspire students to learn, to guide students to learn, and to help students to learn better. we don't really know what we teach them today will be able to be useful as knowledge and skill for tomorrow. We observe that what we have taught them, mainly we have taught them how to deal with the issues in the past, and some deal with the issue in the present. And we are not so sure that what we are teaching them now and will be the knowledge and skill for their dealing with the future issues and problems. There are guiding framework for teacher preparation as well as teacher development in Cambodia. We have the Teacher Policy Action Plan, and it was adopted in late 2014 and fully implemented in early 2015. We have been implementing this Teacher Policy Action Plan for 5-6 years already, and we still not able to resolve the existing problem due to financial capacity, due to institutional capacity that we have also need to adjust this capacity. And as well, we have the teacher professional standards that to guide teacher providers and school to mold and shape their respective teachers according to the standard. We need more inspiring teachers. We need more professional teachers who can be committed to teaching and helping students to learn. We have the curriculum framework and to guide teacher training institutions. In the context of Cambodia, we use teacher training institution as well as teacher education institution as teacher training centers, National Institute of Education, regional teacher training center, and teacher education colleges. I will elaborate further in the next slide. They are all, they have to meet the teacher education provider standard. This is what we have been doing. It's a big job for policymakers and to improve the quality of teachers as well as the quality of teacher educators. We have to readjust our schooling system. We also have to adjust our teacher training institution as well. And in order to empower and to support teachers who do so well for the school, who help the system so well, and then we started to adopt the teacher career pathway policy as well as the continued professional development for education personnel as a whole, because we need an orchestration of teachers, education personnel, school managers, policymakers, parents, as well as the students themselves in joining to improve the quality of education. How we prepare our teachers, who are teacher candidates. Teacher candidates in Cambodia, we target the high school completers, those who graduate from high school, grade 12, and then they can apply for the entrance exam, a very competitive entrance exam. And after they successfully pass the entrance exam, they will be trained for 2 years, mainly to be primary school teachers, to be preschool teachers, as well as to be lower secondary school teachers. We also have the teacher education colleges. We have 2 newly established, well-equipped, under the support of JICA. These 2 teacher education colleges provide 2 programs, 2 years program as well as a 4 years program on a pilot basis, so that we will see and how the 2 years program and how the 4-year program will be differences, and we aiming of stop training for 2 years program. We are moving to 4 years, but due to resources, we are implementing both. Only the National Institute of Education that we accept, that we encourage the university graduates at least bachelor degree in their area of specialization in the subject that we are having at school to apply, and also very competitive, and then they become upper secondary school teachers. So the only entry point to become teacher is to go through all these in training institution, teacher education institution. There are no alternative to become teachers. You have to go through all this pathway in order to become teacher. And the teachers in Cambodia, they are the public government officials. They become education personnel of the Ministry of Education. After they finish their study, they successfully complete their program, and then they will be recruited immediately to be public school teachers. And the issue is the qualification of the existing school teachers. You can see there are still over 50% of the current teachers don't have a bachelor degree. Some of them still have only high school degree or lower secondary school degree certificate, upper secondary school certificate, due to they were recruited in the 1980s and the 1990s. Now they are remaining in the system, and they have been working committedly for the government for over 30 years or over 40 years. They are in their 50s, I suppose, right now. And we aim to have more teachers with the bachelor degree. At least we have to educate them for 4 years or 2 years to be qualified to be upper secondary school teachers as well as lower secondary school teachers. So these are in the process of reform, and we're also doing teacher upgrading, qualification upgrading in order to support them to meet the ASEAN competency framework that we have agreed to work together in the ASEAN teacher competency standard or framework that we have to go together from post 2020. This is just elaboration of what I just discussed earlier, but you can just go through it, and you see this is a formula I mentioned earlier. The challenges we have is the low qualification I just mentioned earlier, and limited access to ICT devices and connectivity for both the teacher training institution as well as the school. The policy is to make the teacher training institution close to school so that they can be in and out to support both pre-service and in-service for teachers, and they can come back for the service from the teacher training institution. The English language is still an issue, and we have limited teaching and learning material, teaching content or learning content in Khmer, and that's so we need to produce more. And continued professional development program just began and in a larger scale. In conclusion, what we focus now is to help the teacher, to support teacher, and to improve the quality of teachers through qualification upgrading as well as the CPD, to ensure that they work together, they build healthy, motivated and committed environment, and with the support of the development partners, namely Unesco under the GPE, and JICA, KwaZulu-Natal, ADB and the World Bank. They've been jointly supporting the reform of teacher education system as well as the improving the infrastructure, classroom, as well as the CPD programs for teachers. And the school-based management policy has been enhanced to strengthen the quality of services with higher community participation. We have to shape teacher education institution to provide both not only pre-service but in-service program. It used to be providing only pre-service but lacking in-service program. That's all of my presentation. For further information, you can visit the ministry website, moebis.gov.kh. Thank you for your listening. I look forward to hearing your comments and questions and after the session. Over to the moderator.
just a huge thank you to Dr. D, our policy expert from Cambodia, really talking about how policies can enable these kinds of possibilities and using Cambodia as a case study. Now remember, he's speaking to us from Kigali at the moment in Rwanda, so and doing work there to develop enabling policies all around the world, so ASP.NET schools can achieve this kind of thinking. Just to stress some of the points he made, we're talking about teaching learners how to learn. Remember, when we were at school, we were taught what we had to know. Imagine if we could have been taught how to learn. That means anything's possible. And when you get the uncertainties of a COVID world or a climate change world, if you've learned how to learn, as his policy is implying, then you can deal with anything. But if you've learned facts that are no longer very relevant, that's not very helpful. So that's why this reimagining work and the book we showed everybody at the beginning is actually a turning point in the history of education globally. And Dr. D is at the forefront of this enabling policy work. Dr. D, thank you so much, and we will be asking for a comment from you in a minute. But I'd like to now go across to somebody who's actually been at the coalface of preparing teachers for this uncertain future. How do we prepare teachers so that they are confident, inspired, motivated, and keen to get going? Well, Professor Mieke is greeting us from Belgium, and we'd like her to present the second keynote. Thank you so much for being with us, Mieke.
Hello, nice to meet you all. I am Mika Van Engelmann from Leuven in Belgium. In this short presentation, I would like to tell you about a specific practice we have in the Teacher Education Institute of UCLL in Leuven. UCLL is a member of the Unesco Associated Schools Network, ASP.NET. I will talk about the program what we name the IEC, the International Educating Class. This UNESCO-inspired international program in education for sustainable development exists since 2009 and has been since then an experimental lab that boosts innovation throughout the whole teacher education program and the entire institute. This program will give you a general idea of how we work in the whole teacher education department. Currently, students from the Flemish teacher education follow classes in this international program, and the international students from multiple nationalities and cultures and multiple disciplines participate in learning activities of the Flemish teacher education. The learning activities are becoming more and more integrated and more shaped to realize internationalization at home and transdisciplinary learning in our teacher education. I would love to build the start of my story around some crucial numbers: 4, 5, 8, and 17. The 4 stands for the fundament of our program, the 4 of SDG 4. We strive to develop quality education. Since 2015, this means implementing SDG 4 and in particular explicitly in our curriculum 4.7. The 4 also refers to the 4 pillars of education. This program already existed before the SDGs were formulated, and it was and still is fundamentally built upon the 4 pillars of education as stated in the Delors report, Learning the Treasure Within. This was published at the start of the new millennium and in the run-up to the first Sustainable Development Agenda. For us, they are timeless. In one semester, we have courses on how to learn to know, on how to see, take, and create opportunities for learning. We have courses to learn to do, in which we stimulate students to use their knowledge to innovate, to create, to take risks, and make mistakes together, and in connection with global education networks. We have courses to learn to live together and courses to learn to be. For example, the course Scenarios for Living Together in 2050, the course on Language, Code and Culture, and the course on Personal Growth on Kindness, Empathy and Gratitude. In the other semester, the structure of the program and the content themes of the courses are derived from the 5 action domains of UNESCO and issues that play a crucial role in the 17 SDGs. The 8 stands for the key competencies for sustainable development and brings us to the goals, the learning results of the program, and to the approach we take to reach these goals, on which I want to zoom in more in this session. In our approach, our working method, you can distinguish about 5 steps. Do not consider them as exact linear phases, but as principles that characterize the activities that together go in a certain direction and sometimes come more or less on the foreground. For us, transformative education starts with trying to deeply understand the reality and trying to get insight in a whole complex system of people and things. Deep understanding starts with listening. We use methods as story circles, photo voice, a project in which stories are shared by means of pictures, and dialogue. We have lots of dialogue exercises, international, multidisciplinary, in which students are taught to postpone their opinion, to listen not to respond, but to truly listen to understand the other story, the other perspective. Dialogues are formally organized in classes, but also ad hoc. The dialogue on the right picture was a brunch dialogue on the day after the Brussels attacks in 2016. The Muslim students were afraid to come to the campus. In these dialogues, there is space for all stories. Flemish students with Turkish background who study to become a Muslim teacher in Belgium, Nigerian Christian students who know the suffering in their country because of Boko Haram, for example. When you listen, questions will arise. So next to listening comes questioning for deep understanding. The depth inquiry, the critical approach of stories and information available. We have research courses. We have a wonderful course in geostrategy. Yes, we have this in the initial teacher education because we want them to get insight and question how things are in the globalized world.
There was more attention for the Arctic, not only for the resources, but also for the trade.
And we have courses in critical thinking, specifically in asking questions. Critical thinking starts with wondering. We always work on 2 levels. We teach the student teachers to ask questions themselves, and we teach them how to do this with their pupils in the classrooms. And based on the study of each other's national education system and concrete observation of each other's practices, we question the hidden curriculum. We search for what is not taught in our schools and also for traces of a colonial past. The next step is systems modeling. There are exercises in systems thinking and systems modeling with different stakeholders. In non-COVID times, we have collaborated for this with programs from other universities who are members of the UNESCO ASP.NET in the Netherlands. Students of social studies in Amsterdam, students of international security program in The Hague, for example. When having the broader picture, students see shared concerns and find shared purposes. And that's when the magic happens in the program. In all the courses, they work in group. There are hardly individual exams. And in the beginning, they find the group work very difficult. They face the mutual interdependence. And then they start to find a common goal. The co-creation starts the process of envisioning possible futures. We have this course in scenario thinking. Based on current trends in society, our students envision scenarios for future ways of living together, and they think of the role of education in these possible future societies. At the end of the semester, they present their work to experts and policymakers. For years, we went to the OECD in Paris to present to the CERI members who write the Trends Shaping Education publication. Last part of the program is the students' action for change. In the project cycle management course, they are equipped with tools to set up their own project for positive change. They imagine, they engage, they participate. In our teacher education program, we internationalize with a purpose. This picture is taken in the recent ASP.NET Change Initiative project, Teaching Together Global Citizens for Sustainable Development. In this project, student duos from teacher educations of 2 different countries together design transformative learning activities to implement in their own local context and integrate virtual exchange for their classrooms. In our teacher education, we also create with a purpose. We celebrate with a purpose. We travel with a purpose. We party with a purpose. We play with a purpose. We organize events with a purpose. We network with a purpose. In Flanders and international. And the purpose is to learn to live together. We don't know how the job of a teacher will look like within 20 years' time. We know that our students in the future will have to be able to deal with change. Things will change. Things have to change. That is again abundantly clear stated in the new UNESCO report, Futures of Education. We think the best way to prepare the teachers for their jobs is to teach them how to create the change themselves, together, for a common goal. That's what we try to do in Leuven. Thank you.
Gosh, well, thank you, Prof. Mieke, for a most inspiring and incredible overview of what happens in Leuven. And I'm sure all of you participants who could see that are just like me. We would love to enroll to be part of that kind of teacher training, teaching us for a different future, the future we can't anticipate, and doing it with a purpose. My goodness, what a special overview indeed. And for me, there was elements of what Dr. D had been suggesting in his enabling policy earlier. You know, how do we teach for understanding, to teach for compassion, to teach for the common good, so that all of us may contribute to a better world for all, rather than simply trying to remember facts. Do you remember how Dr. D implored us not to just teach facts, but to complement the facts with those abilities to question and think and ask better questions together? Now, Dr. D, you have traveled to Africa and you're working with people all over the world in enabling policy. Many people might say, gosh, where I live and work, we don't have the resources that we see in Leuven, where it appears to be a very rich resourced environment to be learning in and to be teaching in. Do you have an insight for us about how you might encourage teachers who perhaps see themselves in a resource poorer environment? Over to you, Dr. D.
Thank you, Jim. I think we have to be careful in looking at teachers and looking for teachers. And if you ask students, they say they would like to see teachers who teach them from heart, not just looking at the teaching, a teacher as a job, but guide them from heart. They need inspiring teacher who can inspire them to learn, inspire them to work hard, inspire them to do things. So I think based on these 2 points, they need teacher who teach them from heart. They need inspiring teachers. This pressure the policy makers and how we prepare students to be teachers, how we attract those who are willing and wanting to serve the education sector, to serve the society. I think teacher selection and teacher preparation are policy makers as well as the financiers need to look into account. So we have to be mindful and when we have them, so that we don't want teachers to lose their interest in their inspiring a couple of years as a teachers, otherwise they lose interest. So the continued professional development for teachers. I mentioned several times when I gave lecture and I shared in conferences, the teacher, they told me they don't want to be fixed by the government, but they want to be supported. They want to be motivated, and then they want guidance and support. They know how to learn from each other through professional learning community. They just be as policymakers, as a government, as schools, we have to prepare platform, we have to prepare ground for their development. They know how to develop themselves, they know how to develop students, but whenever they come to us as a policymakers, we have them. So this is the message that I received from teachers, and we have to prepare for that. Thank you, Jim, for raising the question.
Gosh, Dr. D, thank you for confirming that, because really it's more about actually being a professional who's passionate as a teacher, not just somebody who's got another job. And I really think your enabling policy and the idea of government support is really crucial to that. But it really is all around motivation. And we're going to ask Prof. Mieke in a minute a little bit more about how do you inspire, motivate people, and develop this trust that is clearly happening at University College Leuven. But I'm now going to, before Prof. Mieke answers, I'd like to encourage all the participants to put into the chat what they think could be done to meet this enabling policy that we are all striving for. So come on, folks, let's see. You can ask questions in the chat of our speakers, and that will be followed up later through the discussion forum. But you can ask questions, or better still, make a contribution. How do you think we're going to transform this world? Folks, we are at a watershed worldwide. Luckily, we have the new UNESCO Transforming document to guide us and help us reimagine the future. But Prof. Mieke, give us one or two insights into how you do this inspiring and motivating of your student teachers.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I will try. In two things. Yeah, you've seen the message of my presentation is we try to prepare them to create the change themselves. So the best way to prepare them for transformation is, we think, to give them tools, specific tools to create the transformation themselves in this rather rigid system of education as we know it at this moment, as it exists at this moment. And we let them experience the power of co-creation, and we give them the confidence to try to do it, and making mistakes is allowed. I think that's like the basis. And if you want me to name two crucial things to motivate them, I think bring them in authentic learning situations. And the second is make them feel that they're not working alone. So the first thing, these authentic learning situations for us are international, multicultural, and transdisciplinary learning situations. You cannot talk about bringing in perspectives when you don't have the other perspective from this globalized world. You cannot talk about complex systems modeling and trying to create the whole complex systems when you have, when you don't have these other perspectives. So we have to bring them in and make it possible by means of internationalization, bringing cultures together. And then the same for transdisciplinary, also these different perspectives. And then always connected with other organizations and with educational networks, locally, global education networks. Yeah, that they are not doing it alone in Flanders, but that, yeah, you do it with the whole world at this moment. Yeah, I don't know how to name it. Yeah, there was research. Is that knowing international organizations is directly related to global competences. And there's like a recent research here from the partners in KU Leuven too. They say when teachers are part of a network, they're more likely to innovate. So yeah, that's why we try to do this. Yeah, authentic learning and not alone. Is that good? Is it? This is what we do. Yeah, Jim, I'm sorry. This is what we do in this recent project that we created with the Associated Schools Network. And so together with different teacher education institutes worldwide, we have this project in which 2 students from one teacher education with 2 students from another teacher education preparing together learning activities for global citizenship in their own classroom context. So yeah, I think this is a perfect example, and I think this is a good move to your next part, isn't it?
Exactly, and thank you so much for that. And remember, when we mentioned the UNESCO book, it's not reimagining our futures. It's actually reimagining our futures together. And if anything, our 2 keynote speakers have emphasized, it's this idea of working together. Whatever your resource context is, you can work in partnerships and together. So we are about reimagining our futures together. And thank you both so much. Now, what we are inviting the participants to do is, Prof. Mieke kept emphasizing one SDG. And I want you to put in the chat, which SDG did she mention? And that's a question. So let's see if everyone can get that SDG right. And while folks are putting their answer into the chat, our team managing the chat will tell them if they're correct. If you're not sure, take a guess. And remember, folk, at the end of this seminar, every one of you will have a question to answer through the poll. So listen carefully to what's going on so that you are ready for that poll, which is going to involve selecting 4 key statements like authentic learning, like listening, and so on. And that's going to come up soon. Now what we'd like to do is actually take you to a student who has actually joined this university college course as a cooperative international student. And we're going to call upon insights from this person, Aderonka Adeleguba. And she's a student teacher and will be telling us about inclusive student-centered learning. Let's hear from a student herself. Thank you.
Hi Hi everyone, my name is Adironke Adeluba. I am from Nigeria and I am speaking from the perspective of student teacher. Based on my context and experience, learning becomes transformative when a specialized teaching techniques is being introduced that allows students of different kinds of learning abilities to interact. It also becomes transformative when a flexible approach is being introduced, which allows students to work in their space and at their pace. And lastly, learning becomes transformative when the school builds a system, is like a sustainable system or culture of peer group support to eradicate bullying or shaming among students. So that is my own insight on how learning can become transformative. Thank you. Bye. Hi everyone.
Isn't that wonderful? One super enthusiastic student, but we can't just take her word for it. I mean, if anybody is doing what the two of you have told us about, it's that lady. I wonder how the participants are getting on with their chat and working out which SDG this session is all about. I'm sure many of you have got it right. We're now going to hear from Isabel Sanchez, another student who is on about this transforming the classrooms and the learning for a more sustainable future and a more inclusive future. So let's hear the video from Isabel.
Hello, my name is Isabel Maria Cantos Sanchez. I am from Granada, a city from the south of Spain. I am speaking from the perspective of an Erasmus student of primary teaching education. Based on my experience, learning becomes transformative when you go out of your comfort zone. Being on an Erasmus exchange has taught me that to know other people different from us makes life more interesting, because you learn to make a new family with your friends and also to take care of yourself. Otherwise, to have all these experiences, it's important that we take care of our planet. This area of learning becomes transformative when you start loving nature, taking students outside, where they can experience and appreciate how beautiful and interesting it's been in our planet, and also showing what are we doing with it. Plastic bags in the ocean, in the river, and everywhere. Learning is a way of caring.
Look at that. So learning is all about caring. Goodness me, if that's all we achieve in these teacher training, what could be better than learning is about caring? So a huge thank you to Isabel Sanchez, speaking to us all the way from Spain, and her insights around transformative learning. Now, we've heard from Prof. Mieke, who of course is a teacher educator, but now we'd like to cross to the Philippines and see what Rowena Hibanada will tell us about her work in the Normal University on action-based and real-life learning in the community. So if we could fly that insight from the Philippines, please.
Mabuhay! I am Rowena Hibanada from Philippine Normal University. I believe in transformative education for personal renewal and social transformation. It is best achieved when students are able to have a deep learning and a social action by being part of the solution in the challenges and problems in the community. Let us teach together for global citizenship education, education for sustainable development, and for health and well-being.
Gosh, well, a big thank you to Rowena Hibanada coming to us all the way from the Philippines, and her emphasis on what is transformative teaching for her, and the real life learning that Prof. Mika mentioned in terms of authentic learning. This isn't learning where it's make-believe. We're trying to really get to grips with the real things that people are addressing. So a big thank you to Rowena. We would like to just share some insights from Felisa Tibbets, who's coming to us from the Teachers College, Columbia University. But just before we fly to a video, I understand that everybody who entered the competition about the SDGs got it correct. Well done. It was SDG 4. You were really listening when Prof. Mika was speaking. So the next question that you can all enter is, which is the most important SDG for networking? Remember, she said it's about togetherness, it's about networking. And Dr. D also emphasized that idea of collaboration for a more sustainable future. So please put into the chat that SDG that is all about networking. And now we'd like to fly to Felisa Tibbets from Teachers College, Columbia University. She's at the chair in human rights education. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Felisa Tibbets, and I teach at Teachers College at Columbia University. I don't think it's a mystery what contributes to transformative learning. As a teacher educator, I do my best to design my classes so that they include a few key ingredients. The first is critical self-reflection among learners, related to the lived experiences they bring to the class and their views. Even in my curriculum development classes, learners have experiences that are relevant from their earlier years as a student or teacher. What are their views on the purpose of schooling? How does this affect the way that they want to teach and what they want to teach in the classroom? Critical self-reflection facilitates deep engagement with learning, a deconstruction of earlier experiences and perspectives, and formulation of new ideas. The second ingredient I like to include in all my classes is dialogue among learners, so that they hear each other's voices, listen closely to one another, and they also hear their own voice amongst their peers. This communication is open and democratic. I give students space to have these discussions without me, and I also model open dialogue in the classroom. The third ingredient I like to have for transformative learning is connections with the field. I bring in guest speakers, people from the field who students can relate to, admire, and who can help them make connections between what they're learning in my classroom and practice. I try to organize it so that my students work with live clients in their final project work, whether they're doing their case analysis, curriculum development, or developing a monitoring and evaluation plan. Finally, I regularly remind students about the so what. What are the implications for what they're learning and the choices they're going to make as future educators? This is what it's all about.
Gosh, well, there it is. This is what it's all about. She's telling us. And so we'll just invite Prof. Mika first, and then Dr. D, one or two comments before we go to the polling. And remember, all the participants in the audience, well done for getting SDG 17 correct. That is the SDG all about networking. And these 17 SDGs give us a framework for teaching for a sustainable future. So shot for doing that. And so Prof. Mika, a response to one of those insights that you've just heard. What would you like to say to us?
Yeah, difficult to select, Jim. I want to give comment on all four, but what resonates now is what Felisa said, the connection with the field. I think that's an aspect we need to emphasize here too. And this is also what we mean when we say transdisciplinary, that you go out of your academic context and work together with organizations, and that you yeah, you realize this mixture of formal and non-formal learning and even informal learning. That's why I integrated in my presentation that we party, that we travel, because we're teaching, or we're expecting to see an attitude, and it's very difficult to assess an attitude. I want to address this theme of assessment in transformative education too, and I know people in the audience who are working in teacher education. This is a very difficult thing, and it requires a different role, or letting off go control, how do you say it, as a teacher educator, because you are in the process together with your students creating some new realities, and you sometimes you cannot define in advance which learning results will arise, and so you're discovering together with them the learning results. And these two video clips you've seen from our students, we use them, for example, for their evaluation, for their assessment in January. So we ask them to define their own learning results. When will you see, in what actions will you see that I'm a critical thinker? Or what makes for me a transformative learning experience? We let them define that, and then in January, like, we see, hey, you created this learning activity, does it meet your own criteria? You know, so I'm talking about a change of the way you are as a teacher educator in the process together with your students. I think that's one comment on one of the 4 clips. Is that okay, Jim?
That is absolutely excellent, Mika. And I know that you're researching, instead of assessment, to discipline and control the classroom and the teachers, you are exploring assessment as learning. So what that means, it's a transformation, not only of teaching and learning, but it's a transformation of assessment. So
exactly,
you can use the SDG framework as an evaluative lens to look at how you might do networking, not so much can you do it, are you doing it? So it's not assessment to control, which can sometimes inhibit creativity and transformation, but assessment where learning to ask better questions in learning and amongst the students is really becoming special in this transformed learning that the UNESCO book is calling for as we reimagine. And Dr. D, of course, is the expert on this, and we have time for him to just maybe share one closing comment that struck him from either these video clips or just from the dialogue we've heard. Dr. D.
Thanks, Jim. I think what the current citizens are facing is making choices. And in order to make the correct choice, dealing with selectivity, always a challenge for the younger generation as well as for us. You know, we have to catch up. The smart view of making the right choice is always a challenge, and I think this has to be made it possible in the classroom. It has to be integrated into the teaching and learning in the classroom, and games and how I think this practical experience in the classroom in terms of the teaching method, the inquiry-based action research, simple basic action research that the student can do, and debate, and also build their critical thinking from the debate. So this will be helpful for them to make choices in their future. And I remember during my time, like 30, 40 years ago, when I was at school, and I was not taught like what the students now are exposed to. And I had difficulty in making choices, and I have difficulty in making resilient. But more or less, we are all lifelong learner, and we have to learn, and we have to keep reading, exploring. We have 3 pathways of learning, not only formal and non-formal, but we have the informal learning through the dialogue and dealing with the issues and by consulting with friends and colleagues and so on and so forth. So I think this is the something that we need to find out, and how we can help the student to make choices, especially correct choices that can be another skill for the future. Thank you, Jim, and thank you for the opportunity to interact.
Wow, isn't that just a profound comment about choices? And remember, Prof. Mieke also said this kind of learning is all about learning to ask better questions. And that is about making choices. So back in the day when people like me were at school, who made the choices? The teacher made the choice. And the children, participants, didn't have any choice. So we learned what the teacher wanted us to learn. That has a role to play. But it's not going to help much in a future that's unpredictable and uncertain, where actually giving trust to the learners to start making choices becomes more and more crucial. So both insights really tremendous. Thank you both so much. Now, before we close, we would like to say that the polling is open. That means all participants now have in front of them a Slido poll. If you're not sure how it's working, you can get to the poll using your phone and just put the camera over that image there, or join at slido.com, but make sure you put in the hashtag 020067 into that if you don't use your camera to get yourself to the poll. Now, in that poll, there are 13 options that we've heard from our experts and from our students today. And you need to choose the 4 most important ones, the 4 that you feel are important for this transformed learning that we're all on about. Now, don't feel bad, make a guess, and you can always change your guess. That is the beauty of this kind of flexible learning. So you make your choice, and if you've decided, you read another one and you think, oh, should have done another one, it's absolutely fine. It's really up to you to go back to the other choice. And while we're doing this, I'd like to remind everybody that all the materials from this workshop are on the discussion board, and that they are accessible. Everything in this conference has been recorded, so don't feel that you are missing out. The discussion board on the conference portal is there for all of you to get the more material on this. So enjoy the polling, and we can see that even on my screen, I can see the graphs are going up and down as people choose things like whole institution processes and so on. Now, we have Prof. Mieke, who would like to just share a closing thought. And from our side, we'd also like to thank all the people who've made this session possible. You might think it was just the 3 of us. That couldn't be further from the truth. We have had our speakers, but we've also had from Unesco, APCEIU, Katja Anga, Danny Padilla, Vutale. We've also had people from Melanie Soto and Eric Eschtaler also helping in the background to make this kind of session special. So I think Prof. Mieke would like to say something, so I'm just going to give her a chance to make a comment. Thank you, Prof. Mieke.
Thank you, Jim. It was just one more comment on one of the video clips I was thinking, and maybe this is nice to end. I know Rowena from this project we do together with the Teacher Education Institutes from the ASP.NET. And I feel so much gratitude to be part of it, because it empowers us as teacher educators too. You know, this project, we're working with our students and with their pupils in the classrooms, but in the meantime, we learn from each other too. So I'm very, very grateful to be part with our Teacher Institute of this ASP.NET. So thank you, Katja, Julie, and you're the whole team.
Absolutely, indeed. And Julie Sato, our leader in the ASP.NET. Thank you, Julie, for always being encouraging of this. And remember, ASP.NET is one of the longest running education networks in the world, with the largest number of members. So if you know of anybody who's in education who would be interested in transforming their teaching, then refer them to ASP.NET. What a wonderful opportunity for collaborative learning as we work towards reimagining our futures together. Dr. D, do you have a final closing comment to keep this inspiration that you've been sharing with us around policy? And what would you say to this fantastic audience we've had? Look at the polls that they've all contributed to. Great stuff. And over to you, Dr. D.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone, for spending time and joining and listening to us. I think I mentioned earlier, you know, being a good teacher is not easy, but being a good teacher, and you have to be ready to be a giver. You know, you don't need to look much into how you know. I mean, to be a giver is to support other teachers to do better, and to support the learners to learn better, so that we can have a beautiful society where we give others knowledge, skill, we work with others happily, joyfully. That's why I think what we need to do to build a joyful learning environment, not only for teachers themselves, but also for students, as well as the school-based joyful learning environment. So when we are happy, when we have joy inside us, and then when we work together, we learn together, I think there will be high productivity that will come out from this kind of joy, learning joyfully. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone.
Great, Dr. D. Thank you for that. And we see here from Danny Padilla just reminding us that APCEIU have also done great work in putting together this session and all the materials related to it. So don't forget, it's there in the discussion board. You can get more material about it later. And remember, everybody, join hands with us. This is the only planet we have. We have each other together. We now have this incredible Reimagining Our Futures Together document. Never has the time been better placed for more inspirational learning. And let's bring everybody in to this new world era that this moment in time makes possible for us. And remember, the teachers and the teacher learners, that they are at the cutting edge of the transformation of our planet. There is no profession more important than teaching. It is teaching that gives us a chance not only to get on with each other better through GCED work, but also to learn to live more sustainably through ESD. So thank you, everybody. We trust you enjoyed the session. It was great having you. And yeah, we see you all on the platform stream and the discussion box is all there. Thank you, Prof. Mika. Thank you, Dr. D, and all the people who made this session possible. It's been really splendid having you all with us, and enjoy the rest of the day, whether it's evening time for you in that part of the world, morning time, daytime. And there I see Dr. Julie has just joined us. So maybe she would like to join our platform and just be the one who says goodbye. Thank you all very much indeed. Over from us and to Julie.
Thank you so much, Jim and Mieke and Dr. D, and also Felisa, all this wonderful Romina, great voices heard from this ASP.NET community. We're all one to move one by one towards transformative education, but it's really touching to see that all the choices are for the students, and I think the teachers are helping them to choose their lives. And this is a really great vision and very positive manner, and I'm very, very happy to be a part of this forum. Thank you very much, Jim, for the wonderful moderation. Thank you so much. Goodbye to you all. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Okay.
And enjoy the forum. Thank you very much. Thank you all my colleagues as well. Thank you. And all the ASP.NET members. There are more than 400 members from the ASP.NET are now listening today. So very happy to share this beautiful session with you all. Thank you very much.